So you start getting into the ministry, and you start looking at how it's going, and then you kind of alluded to it a little bit. You started hitting some hurdles, right? You started hitting the hurdles of what is my team strengths, that you weren't really maximizing your team as much as you could. What would
Mhm.
you say are some of the other maybe big or the biggest learning hurdles that you had to face in your first 2 years?
Well, you and I both know that to be successful in ministry and uh, to be able to have the best results that God designs for that ministry, you've got to have a wife that is there,
Yes.
that is backing you up and supporting you, and I have that.
Shout out to
My
Brittany.
That's right. My wife, Brittany, look, I've been in ministry 2 years. She's been married to me for almost three. So I think she gets a t-shirt or a trophy or something.
100%. Yes.
So, but one of the things that she actually taught me early on was, Devin, you have to delegate. The whole world and the whole weight of the ministry is not on your shoulders.
That's right.
You have to delegate it. You have to realize that, because here's the thing, if you take on all the responsibilities, the ministry becomes about you. It's not about your team anymore, or it's not about, your team or the students or anything. It becomes about you.
Yep.
And that is a huge, huge monkey in the wrench in the plan that's going to mess everything up. So you got to make sure that you delegate very, very well. Another thing is, I had to realize that ministry today is not done that same way. I told you earlier that going into it, I said I was going to try and do ministry the way ministry was done to me, but it's not that simple. It is
I'll,
no longer. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I like how you say the way youth ministry was done to me, as if it was inflicted upon you. Like,
You know, you know what? It was in youth ministry where I discovered that I had a calling on my life.
sure.
To be in the ministry. So,
Yeah.
for whatever that was, that was done to me.
Regardless of good or right, regardless of the container that you were in, or the style of the container, what was put in was still some pretty good stuff that God brought out of it. So,
Right. And the biggest thing that I had to learn was that Gen Z is different.
yeah.
If we cannot pastor the way that we were pastored, it is no longer. Now, don't get me wrong, for youth ministries that are out there that are doing worship and preaching and altar calls and all that, and that's awesome. And for them, if that works for your students, then by all means go after it.
Right.
But most of Gen Z, it does not work that way. And I'm sure out there, there's youth pastors that are listening to this and are beating their head against the wall and in their office. And then they're having to, the rule number one is, you never ask the youth pastor how the hole got in the wall. We don't
Right.
know.
We don't know.
So, but they're beating their head into the wall, wondering, why is it not working? Why, like your last episode, am I making a difference?
Yeah.
And they're wondering all these things. And the problem is this, is they have created a model for their students, not with their students.
Right.
And so
Right.
one of the things that I learned was, after I delegated and after I realized how different Gen Z is I was trying to sell them on a model
Mm-hmm.
that I created.
Right.
And that was the problem.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell them on something that they didn't ask for. So I'm trying to implement all these great and wonderful things
Yep.
because I liked it. Because whenever I was 15 and 16 and 17 years old, I thought it was the coolest thing on the world.
That's right.
The
That's
teenagers
right.
today do not care.
Nope.
They don't. It's
Nope.
different. And so that's why I had to branch out and do small groups, or do other models like small groups.
Sure.
And what I really did is I got my student leaders together, Paul, and I sat them down and I said, okay, I'm just the adult in the room and the pastor of this youth ministry.
Yep.
This is your time. This
Right.
is your ministry. What
Right.
do you want? And I think youth pastors today have lost sight of that in some way, is we've quit asking students, what do you want?
Right. And that came out of a coaching session that we had, right?
Yeah.
That came out of where we really started to experiment with models, and we experimented with how you were going to get to where you were going to go. And I think you nailed it in saying, listen, you have to be able to construct a ministry along with your students, and not otherwise you become a salesman, right? I have an
Mm-hmm.
idea, I have a plan, let me sell it to you, right? If you're creating it with them, they're far more invested, they have far more ownership into what they're doing and participating in the gospel, right? And
Right.
participating in the form in their own spiritual formation. They're participating.
Right.
That's the goal. The goal isn't to us to, crank out, disciples like they're on a conveyor belt. Our goal is to students to be formed in Christ on an individual basis, right? To be able to do that. But like I said, we hammered that out within a coaching session, because
Uh-huh.
we threw a lot of stuff against the wall. We said, well, will this work? Or, and really we just kind of created open space for then kids
Right.
to talk, and then we get to listen. And that's probably one of the most valuable skills a youth pastor can have, is listening to their students.
Right. And the problem is we're not listening. We're trying to just shove, 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 shove and teach all these things
Yeah.
because we've got the degree or we've got the experience or whatever like that. And here's the thing, they don't care.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you taught me was, you said after we drank our coffee place out of coffee completely,
Yeah, pretty much.
I think by the end of that session they were like, guys, you got to go. We're out of beans. We're out of everything.
They're shutting the lights off.
Right. But one of the things that you taught me was that we cannot try and force that model on them. And one of the things that I think about, like, was probably one of my biggest fails, because I've been here 2 years, so I've made a lot of fails.
Yep.
One of them, and I don't even know if I've told you about this before, but we had there was a Super Bowl game that was coming on, and at my last church where I was at, every year this youth group, they made crock pots of chili and taco soup and everything like that. They put the Super Bowl up on the projector, and students and parents and everybody watched, right?
Yep, right.
Tried it here, dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Right.
Not a single one of them.
Right.
And the thing is I had been in this youth ministry for 3 months whenever I tried this.
Yep.
And literally, I don't even think they made it past 10 minutes to go in the first quarter.
Probably not.
I think they ate, grabbed a basketball, and went outside or went somewhere else.
Yep.
And that's okay. But see, here's the thing. What I learned from that is that it can't be done. Just because it worked at your last church does not mean it's going to work here. You've got to get to know these students where you're at right now and invest in them.